Welcome to Team Andrew's Capstone Reflection presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to showcase our work throughout these 8 weeks, particularly with the capstone simulation. Well, we also wanted to touch on a few additional points that you will see throughout this PowerPoint discussion. This presentation will cover the following topics: an overview of what we learned during the simulations practice rounds, our initial business plan, what went well, what didn't go well, and what could be improved. And lastly, answering two very important questions. How would we carry the CAPSIM application out into the real world? And if we could go back in time, what would we tell ourselves before starting the simulation? But first, a special sponsor break. Before we get officially started, we feel it is important to note the importance of our readings and case studies assigned throughout this capstone course. While a simulation is a necessary component to the course, obviously, readings and case studies provide us with an additional look at real-world thinking and an outlook of what to do and what not to do as we embark and continue to power through our careers in business and marketing. Personally, career studies are my strong suit, and it was a lot of fun to apply some of my journalism background to help put these pieces together. Collaboratively, we put together strong answers on props given, especially for the exciting topic of the Enron scandal. Like 9/11, many of us can remember where we were when the story broke, and working on this study just brought back so many memories for me, and I'm sure others enrolled. Here, we will discuss initial thoughts of the simulation, what we learned, how we applied what we learned, potential learning tools. Initial thoughts of the simulation were, what exactly are we doing here? But the practice rounds allowed for us to conduct trial and error simulations, meaning we were able to make errors without the pressure of, oh my God, we're going to get a terrible grade. A great benefit of the practice rounds was learning the importance of communication. Practice round group work invited us each to navigate the waters of strong opinions, which mirror the reality of the business world, and also allowed us to, 1, ask questions, 2, make a plan, and 3, get a sneak peek at what our competitors might be doing, especially the robots. We learned that it was okay to borrow money and debt is okay for businesses starting out, the importance in generating a profit, and why everyone should avoid emergency loans. Based on our conversations, we were able to take this information through a very successful simulation run, which we will touch more on later. And even though we placed second overall, it is a vast accomplishment from the first moment of fear. And for me personally, as someone who hates math and anything to do with numbers, allowed for a bit more confidence in that regard. We were also successful because our group made it a point to meet twice a week, and even though many of us were tired after long days, we stayed on as light as necessary to get the job done, and learned later the balanced scorecard is your best friend. Without that, I do not think we would have been as confident with our decision-making overall.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, this is Joe Picarella. I will be covering our initial business plan for the capstone simulation. So we knew going in, based on what we had learned from the practice rounds, that one of the keys to success was going to be to ensure that each of our products was positioned ideally in its respective perceptual map in order to meet the demands of each target market segment and thus maximize sales. This was our first focus in each and every round. Making the proper adjustments to performance, size, and MTBF in each round were crucial to our success. Next, in addition to creating the products that our customers wanted, we also made sure to price our products attractively while still generating a healthy contribution margin. We were able to achieve this by paying close attention to our overall costs to produce each product, as well as the prices that our competitors were offering. We would then turn our attention to marketing and sales. We executed an aggressive investment strategy in these areas in the early rounds with the intention of eventually capturing enough market share to pull back a bit and lower our marketing costs in the later rounds. Finding the right balance between which mediums to invest in for each product, as well as how to best invest in distribution for our products, took some time, but we eventually got it locked in. In addition, we also invested heavily in automation and TQM early and often, knowing that eventually these costs would fall off, which would allow us to minimize costs, thus increasing our margins further while allowing us to continue to lower our prices and remain competitive. We also invested heavily in HR and training throughout the simulation as a way to maintain a highly trained workforce while minimizing turnover. We learned in the practice rounds how costly turnover could be, and we wanted to make sure that this would not be a cost we would have to accrue during the actual competition. All of these efforts were made with the goal of becoming profitable as quickly as possible so that we could begin paying dividends early on to help boost the price of our stock. Once we were able to achieve this, we noticed an immediate and significant improvement in our stock price. By executing this business plan, we were able to jump into first place and remain there in essentially every round with the exception of the final two. Had we introduced more products earlier, we feel confident we would have remained in first place for the entirety of the competition.
What went well? What didn't go well? These are a few lessons we collectively learned. When deciding on a starting price point, we decided to aim a little higher, and as we were able to improve our margins over time, we would lower our prices as our costs were also decreasing. Our price cuts weren't to the point where it would be a one-to-one ratio in terms of decreasing, so our margins and profits were still steadily increasing. We wanted to set our prices to be competitive with the market, but also potentially attract market share. In the first few rounds, we were going off of business logic and prior knowledge. We analyzed the Balanced Scorecard and Capstone Courier heavily in order to make any additional decisions and pivot. This helped us understand that there is a give and take aspect with everything regarding the simulation. So basically, if we cut prices, we essentially cut margins. However, if we didn't cut prices, we could potentially be priced out of the market. Things like that are extremely key to notice, especially when dealing with something that sensitive. Lastly, we did horrible in our practice rounds. If we look back at how we did in our practice rounds, we dug ourselves a hole that was almost impossible to get out of. Our stock price went to $1, and year over year, we had to take out emergency loans to stay afloat. That was extremely key for us to reflect on and learn from. Unfortunately, we didn't see the same result in the actual simulation. We saw automation as a huge opportunity. Automation was seen as a costly investment, but after crunching the numbers, we saw that it was necessary to implement, as this would be the key driver to increasing our contribution margin, as this increased our productivity and cut labor costs. The chart shown are actual results from the simulation, and as you can see, we started off our journey with 28% margins, which isn't bad to operate a profitable business, but we saw a huge opportunity to almost double that. During the middle of our simulation, we were able to extend our margins to 50% as our automation investments were paying off. And from there, you can see that it held steady due to also reaching parity. Due to taking advantage of our automation opportunity, in retrospect, we were also able to increase our sales and profit year over year. These two charts shown are actual results from the simulation. And as you can see, we are able to achieve growth in revenue at a steady and consistent basis. Profit, on the other hand, was slightly more shaky due to the timing of investments and purchases. But overall, we would consider this a success, as we were able to stay profitable operating at extremely high return on sales, a high return on assets, and a low EBIT.
What went well and what didn't go so well? So what went well for us, one of our notable achievements was definitely being able to set competitive price points that effectively distinguished our products from the other groups. We were definitely keen to what they were doing and kept track of what other groups were pricing their products at and tried to kind of undercut them in a sense. So we think that our attractive pricing, at the end of the day, attracted more customers and ultimately boosted our sales. We also think that we had a good understanding of the give and take aspect in business. So we knew that whatever we were going to take, there's also going to be a give attached to it. So it just came down to how could we mitigate whatever we were giving up when we were making these changes. Furthermore, we definitely were able to seize the opportunity of the practice rounds, which for our group did not go so well, especially early on. We were very aware of where we misstepped and made mistakes, and then we were able to change our decision making and kind of alter our strategy moving forward from that. And I think that played a lot into our success when it came to the real rounds. As for what did not go so well, we definitely encountered some challenges when it came to the allocation of our time and financial resources in terms of marketing, just early on, I would say. In those early stages, we underestimated the importance of marketing, and allocated insufficient time and funds towards it. We were kind of just marketing towards every product equally, instead of targeting the ones with the highest margins and then focusing more of our time and resources towards that. We ultimately were able to do that later on, but just I think if we had done that earlier, we might have seen even more growth. The other thing is we missed the opportunity to borrow some cheap cash. We just were very worried about taking on that debt, but looking back, it would have been a better look probably for investors in both the simulation and real life just to have that cash on hand. We were just doing so well when it came to profit and the money we were making ourselves that we didn't necessarily think about it as much. But once we hit the very end of the simulation, we realized that going back, we definitely should have put more time and consideration into that area and borrowed that cash. I think that was the biggest difference in what separated us from first and second place as a group. Improvements. So if we could go back in time, we definitely would determine early on which products generated the highest profit margins, like I said. We did do that. It just took a round or two, but after we analyzed and broke that down and had kind of narrowed in on which ones were the most profitable, then we could have allocated our marketing efforts towards them and promoted them more. Secondly, we would embrace a more proactive approach when it comes to taking calculated risks, especially earlier on in the simulation. I think we were just happy with what we were seeing and kind of got satisfied with, because we were getting good results, but at the end of the day, had we taken more risks, we probably would have won the whole simulation. Just being able to be innovative is definitely crucial just in business in general, and the simulation is a testament to that. Had we explored new strategies or tried to maybe release new products earlier on, we might have unlocked higher scores and ultimately won, but we played it safer and more cautious, and we're comfortable with the results we were getting, and that's just what we're going to have to live with. Thirdly, like I said, we should have sought to borrow some cheap cash throughout each round of the simulation. This would have just had more cash on hand, played better with the investors, and would have been the answer to what we were trying to search for in terms of just getting the highest balanced scorecard we could get. And then lastly was just we were chasing that high scorecard, and it was definitely, you want to find the balance between, okay, we want the highest score, but at the same time, what's the healthiest decision for the long-term outlook of a business. So just continuing to be cognizant of that balance and play into that. But overall, I think we did a great job with this entire simulation, and we learned a lot.
My career has taken me from journalism to copywriting to media and PR. And while the simulation may not directly correlate with my everyday tasks, it will allow me to work with teams that work more, with producing marketable items, where to distribute said items, and how much to spend on said items. For example, how much should we spend on press-related events? Do we need marketable items such as swag, press kits, etc.? How much revenue will we generate for our company as a result? My job is to ensure we market my company's highs and sometimes lows. But overall, people want to know the good that happens within our walls. And much has to do with how active we are in the community and how much we spend to showcase those highs.
This is Joe Picarella again, here to discuss how I plan to apply the lessons I have learned in this course to the real world. My concentration for this degree is marketing, and I tend to view each lesson through the eyes of a marketer. This class was no different. One of the lessons I learned during this course is just how crucial it is to know your segments and how to match your message to the medium in order to meet your customer where they live. Simply throwing money blindly in any medium in an attempt to market and hoping it results in a positive return on marketing investment is futile. It is absolutely crucial to study each segment and know where they spend their time so that you can effectively market a product or service to them in a way that feels focused. Taking this a step back further, one of the most important lessons that was reinforced for me during this class that I will take with me in my business career is just how important it is for every business to start with the quality of their product or service. You can't outmarket a substandard offering. The product or service being sold must be designed and delivered in such a way that it solves your customer's problem better than anything else available. If your product or service fails to do this, your customers will eventually find an alternative. Yet another valuable lesson for me that I will use in the real world is just how valuable it is to take calculated risks. Resting on your laurels is usually a death sentence in business. It is vital for any enterprise to continue to find ways to grow and innovate if they hope to stay relevant and profitable. It can be intimidating to step outside of one's comfort zone, and there are risks involved. But I feel the key to successfully moving your company forward is to always be learning about how your industry and your customers' tastes and needs are evolving as a way to mitigate those risks and maximize the potential rewards. And finally, if there's one thing I learned over the course of my entire MBA that I know I will be implementing in the real world, it is that it can't be overstated how important it is for any business to recognize their strengths and weaknesses and to reinforce their weaknesses by finding the people who are strong in those areas. There are so many aspects of running a business that are all absolutely necessary for success, and it is impossible for any one person to be an expert in all of them. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that aspiring business leaders make. They feel that they can do it all themselves. I now know that there are areas where I excel and others where I fall short, and I know it will be imperative for me to find people who are experts in the areas where I am not and make them a part of my team.
As my career has started off in logistics and continues to take me into various parts of the supply chain, the CAPSIM was extremely entertaining for me, as it was also related to my line of work. The CAPSIM responsibilities would be similar to of somebody managing a warehouse, being a site leader, managing a facility, and as that's a viable step in the ladder for me, it was great to learn at a bird's eye view. My responsibilities currently and previously dealt with controlling production, supply chain management, and managing to the metrics. The CAPSIM has allowed me to view customer needs, highlight the importance of human resources, and emphasize the need to minimize turnover rate, but also implement long-term goals such as automation. So a lesson learned from this could be something like some investments are extremely costly, but as long as there is sufficient analytical evidence to support the purchase, and as long as it's within the budget, and as long as the investment will pay off in the near future, it would be worth it. Things like that are extremely important for me to bring into the future, as taking risk is extremely necessary as you continue to push for innovation.
Real world application. So in terms of real world application, I would say that the simulation has opened my eyes just to how much goes into running a business. As someone who one day does want to run their own business, I am now so much more aware of what will be required of me in terms of running a company at a high level. I'm just super grateful for everything I've learned throughout this whole simulation and course as a whole, and just super excited to carry what I have with me now into the business world. Thank you.
Now, going back to the beginning, if we could go back in time and teach ourselves the CAPSIM simulation, what would we say? So Ben would say, we would stay composed and embrace the courage to venture into new territories. There is an optimal balance between risk and prudence. Sean would say, set a vision and goal, an overarching goal, but be able to pivot after properly analyzing results. Joseph would say, be more aggressive and take risks. There's always time to recover as long as the mistakes you make are in the earlier rounds. Now, Christina would mention that it's key to not panic and ask questions. Everything is going to be okay with the right team. Thank you.